Hello and welcome to All About Inverses. Today we're going to learn what an inverse is, what are the properties, and how to actually find one. So take a minute, pause the video, and I want you to first look at, given these two equations, their graphs and their tables, find three observations. So if you look at the two equations, one thing you might have noticed is that the slopes are reciprocals, right? Our first slope is 2, and our second slope is 1/2. Something else that you might have noticed when looking at the graphs is that the x and y coordinates are switched for both the tables. For example, if you look at the first table, you have -1, 0 as your coordinate. But in the other table, you have 0, -1 as your coordinate. The last observation that you might have noticed is that these two graphs are reflections of each other. Specifically, they are reflected over the line y equals x. Now that is a diagonal line through the origin. Any equations or any two equations that have these three properties are what we call inverses of each other. So let's talk about notation. If you are given a function f of x and you are asked to find its inverse, we are going to get this notation, f to the -1 of x. The -1, as the little exponent kind of, means inverse. On the flip side, if you are given f to the -1 of x, the inverse of that is going to be f of x. So you need to pay attention what the questions are asking, because sometimes they say find the inverse, but other times they just say find f of -1. And you have to realize that means, oh, I have to find the inverse. Let's try an example. Your very first step to these equations is to rewrite from function notation to y. So for example, in this particular problem, we are given f of x, and we're saying find f of -1. So you're going to find the inverse, right? You're going to take the original equation and write it as y equals 3x minus 2. Simple enough, right? But that part is really important because it helps us with step 2. We're going to switch x and y and just switch the positions. So where I see a y, I'm now going to write x. And where I see x, I'm now going to write y. Now that you've switched x and y, we're going to solve for y and get it by itself. So we're going to bring over the 2 to get x plus 2 equals 3y. And then we're going to divide by 3 to get the y by itself. We end up with y equals x plus 2 divided by 3. But you're still not done, because if you noticed in the question, we were given f of x. They told you to find f to the -1 of x. We found y. So your very last step is to put it back into function notation. That part's really important. If they ask you to find f to the -1, don't leave it as y. You need to put it back in the proper notation. So your final answer should really be f to the negative 1 of x is equal to x plus 2 over 3. Now this is perfectly correct. However, if you're looking at Regents multiple choice questions, this is not the form you're going to see it in. Instead, you're going to see it as true fractions. We're going to take the x over 3, and then we're going to take the 2 over 3. And when you break it up, that's really how you're going to see it in multiple choice questions. So this is how you're going to see it in multiple choice questions, but this is also correct for you to write as well. If you think you're okay with this problem, let's try another. Here, again, they're asking you to find the inverse. And we're not going to skip step 1. We're going to write it in terms of y. Your next step is to switch positions of x and y. So x equals negative 2y plus 8. Now you get y by itself. X minus 8 is equal to negative 2y. And you're going to divide everything by negative 2 to get the y by itself. Be careful when you're dividing by negative 2. Make sure you actually switch your signs. You get negative x over 2 plus 4 is equal to y. Last step is to write it in terms of function notation. We want to go back. So we're going to have that the inverse is negative x over 2 plus 4. If you wrote instead that the inverse was 4 minus x over 2, either of those would work. Okay, time for one last example. And in this example, they don't give you an equation. However, we know because of the notation, they're still asking you for the inverse. So there's no steps to this really like the other examples, right? But if you go back to the first page, we know that properties of inverses are when you switch the coordinates. So what I mean by that is the inverse, instead of having 4, 2, we're going to have 2, 4. Instead of 5, 0, we're going to have 0, 5. And so on. Our last one is going to be negative 8, 6. And notice I didn't change the signs. I didn't make anything positive or negative. I took exactly what we started with and I just flip-flopped the x and y coordinates. So those are your 3 examples to find your coordinates. I hope it helps.